Alrighty, everyone. Today I want to talk about, do I wish I could have gone to a private school compared to North Sydney boys, and give you just my honest opinion retrospectively, sort of recounting on my experiences. Now, would I have preferred to go to a private school? My answer would be that it would depend what private school, but on an average, I would say yes. And I'll explain why. Now, the number one reason has to be definitely extracurriculars and becoming a well-rounded individual. Everyone I know coming from a private school has just had experience doing different kinds of sports activities because their school really had a whole arsenal of things you could choose from. Whether that be, I recently went skiing and I saw private school kids from Sydney skiing, right? That's something that is offered at private schools, or things like rowing, or even the school facilities, the school gym at private schools are always really, really good because they have a high emphasis on doing good at sports. So there's a lot more well-roundedness in private school individuals compared to select school individuals. And just on an average, when I conversate with, I guess, a private school individual compared to a select school, I noticed that private school individuals have much better, I guess, social skills and soft and communication skills. And I guess that whole bleeds into the concept of the fact that um, private school kids tend to be more well-rounded and not just focus on academics but also communicating with others, things like public speaking, interacting with others. There's more of a social sort of dynamic to the school where the kids as well in general are a lot more social compared to selective schools. So that's a huge aspect of, would I prefer to go to private school? Yes, because it would have helped in helping me be a lot more well-rounded when you look at the average North Sydney boys kid. Now, the number two thing is, I guess you're probably thinking, again, North Sydney boys allowed you to get a really high ATAR. And that is definitely true. It definitely was the reason I got the mark that I did. But looking at private school kids, if you want to do well at a private school, you can, because then you can become of a little, I guess, select cohort of kids who are academically orientated, who always do really well at private schools. Because the top, I'd say 10 to 20 private school kids are on the same level as the James Roos kids. You know what I mean? And if you want to do well, the school will give you every resource and facility to do well and really help you. But the whole fact is that not all the kids at private schools want to do really well academically. A lot of them, might be continuing on a family business, or going into sports, or going into opening their own business, or going to a field where you don't really need a high ATAR, but they still do really well in that field. Maybe they want to go into the, creative fields, creative performance, things like that. Um, so if you want to do something academic at a private school, you can. You can be part of that select few kids who want to make medicine, who want to get a really high ATAR, and you can sort of stick around them, and you can compete with the James Roos kids and the really top kids. And I say this because if you look at the kids who score really highly in New South Wales and get your really high ATARs, a lot of them are private school kids because they also get the opportunity to do the IB, which is I guess a alternative to the HSC, which private schools offer, which you can do really well in, and schools help you a lot, and you can get the top ATAR. I'd say slightly easier than getting a 99.95 ATAR. But bottom line is, if you want to do well academically at a private school, you can, because the school supports you a lot if you are that type of academically orientated child. But if you're a child if you have a kid who maybe wants to go into the creative sides or explore other areas outside academics and really excel in those, a private school will foster those things, but a selective school won't. A selective school is very linear and only sort of allows you to excel academically. And that brings me to my third point, in the fact that private schools have a lot more diversity. And that's something, again, I didn't really get exposure at North Sydney Boys. I met the same sort of type of person who wanted to go into STEM, who really loved maths and sciences. In a private school, when I speak to other people, I've met people who love languages, again, love the performing arts, people who also love math, science, English, the types of degrees that they end up studying. Everyone is a little bit different, and you just meet different kinds of people. You're not stuck in some kind of bubble where you only know one or two types of people, which was the case at North Sydney Boys. I didn't really think that um, people don't, people go for things outside medicine or outside law or outside engineering or, computer science. That's all I really kind of knew were options for me. right? But if you have that diversity, meet different people, you get exposure to a whole lot more of life and a whole lot more of, I guess, Australia, which is something that's very important, especially when you're a teenager and you're still, growing up and exploring the world. And that brings me to my fourth point, where private schools just offer a way more opportunities, even sporting opportunities, academic opportunities. They offer way more types of subjects. Like I wish at my school I could have done ancient Greek as a subject. It's never offered. But private schools, yeah, they're offered. Even my cohort of kids who did Latin at my school, we had to really fight to have a Latin class. Private schools, you would never have that issue. They would always run a class if you want to do a subject. And I guess that's the advantage. Whatever you want to do at a private school, you can, whether that be from a sporting side, an academic side, extracurricular side, if you want to join some clubs, and they encourage these things and they encourage lots of opportunities compared to selective schools, which is like, okay, you do your maths, you do your science, you get a high ATAR, that's sort of it. That brings you to my last point, where private schools just have a lot more networking, in the fact that typically kids who are sent to private schools have, quite successful parents, I'd say, in terms of, if they can afford a private school or if they're willing to put that sort of money for it. And oftentimes that helps you build your network. This person's, parents who are doing this, and they might have that experience. I'm not saying that's not the case at selective schools. You can definitely network at selective schools lots, but from what I've noticed, it tends to be a bit more at private schools. And typically, kids coming from private schools have, affiliations with different institutes and different, sort of feeder systems into companies where they prefer private school kids. So there is a little bit of, I guess, I don't want to say nepotism, but a bit of favoritism when it comes to some private schools when you're picking private school kids over select school kids. That exists, not in all cases. It's just in some instances I've heard and seen about, but it's something to be wary of, I guess. There is greater networking opportunities when you're coming from when you're in a private school system, just from the people around you, compared to in a selective school. That's it from me, guys. My final answer to, I guess, the question, would I prefer to be in a private school compared to North Sydney boys? I'd say yes. I ideally, even if I had, a boy and I'm still in Sydney, a child, I would ideally want to send them to a school like Sydney Grammar. I think it's just a very well-rounded school and very academic, or another one of the other really great private schools. I just think it's a much more well-rounded experience, and it helps with overall development of someone growing up in Sydney. That's it from me, guys. I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll speak to you soon.